Good news out of Sacramento Kings practice on the eve of the opening night of the Kings season. Kevin Huerter and Trey Lyles are back. They are healthy, cleared, and will suit up and play tomorrow night for the Kings versus the Timberwolves. And Kevin Huerter will be starting. Let's break it down right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel right now. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to learn more and get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And you can be mad at me because throughout camp, throughout preseason, I told you that I felt that the starting two-guard spot was a lock for Keon Ellis. I told you that even when we found out about a week and a half ago that Kevin Huerter was cleared to return to 5-on-5 action, but didn't play any of the preseason, didn't get into that final preseason game against the LA Clippers, I thought for sure that this was Keon Ellis' starting spot to open up the season, and Kevin Huerter, who hasn't played a single second of NBA action, real NBA action, since March after a shoulder surgery that's kept him on the shelf for around 6 months. I did not think that we were going to have Kevin Huerter right back into the starting lineup on opening night, even if I was hopeful that Kevin would be ready for opening night. Well, the good news is Kevin is ready. He's going to be suited up. Kevin Huerter is going to play, and whatever role Kevin is playing, that is only a great thing for the Sacramento Kings, who, as we saw in preseason, could absolutely use his shooting. But I did not expect what we loosely found out today. And I say loosely because Mike Brown, Kevin Huerter, Keon Ellis, none of them that we talked to today gave us a straight Kevin Huerter is starting. Yesterday at practice, Mike Brown said that if Kevin is ready to go, he most likely will start, but still no confirmation there. We did not get confirmation from Keon Ellis. You're going to hear from him in the show today. Keon did not directly say, I am coming off the bench, but he answered direct questions about it as if he had already been informed. You're going to hear from Kevin Huerter talking about fitting right back in with the starters. You're going to hear from Mike Brown talking about both of those players and more on today's show. But even though no one directly told us this is what's happening, their words and all the signs are pointing to Keon Ellis on the bench, or off of the bench, should I say, Kevin Huerter back into the starting lineup. And we walk in, right, through the media door. The basket right in front of the media door has the bench unit doing a shooting drill when the media walks into practice today. And the bench unit wears white. Who is the first person we see right in front of us when we walk in? It's Keon Ellis wearing a white jersey, standing next to Doug McDermott, Alex Len, Malik Monk, the second unit. And we look on the opposite basket, on the opposite end, and there are the starters wearing black: De'Aaron Fox, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis, DeMar DeRozan, and Kevin Huerter. I did not see it coming. I did not see it. Genuinely, I did not think, especially after Kevin didn't get into that final preseason game against the Clippers, I did not think that we were actually going to get Kevin Huerter back into the starting lineup. But here we are. This is where we are at. Kevin Huerter is back and is expected to be in the starting lineup. So the Kings must be very confident in two things in particular. Number one, that Keegan Murray can handle the main defensive assignment 1 through 4. Whether it's a point guard, shooting guard, small forward, or power forward, whoever the top defensive assignment is, Keegan Murray will get that guy to start the game. And tomorrow night, of course, that guy is Anthony Edwards. So Keegan Murray, unless the Kings decide to pull a fast one, and I don't know what other move they would make other than having De'Aaron Fox start defensively on Anthony Edwards, which I don't think is going to happen at all. Keegan Murray should start defensively on Ant. It sure as hell is not going to be Kevin Huerter, right? It's not going to be Kevin Huerter. So number one is that the Kings feel pretty confident in Keegan's ability to handle that top defensive assignment 1 through 4. If the top defensive assignment is the center, Domantas Sabonis, best of luck. The second thing they're confident in is that Kevin Huerter's shooting and spacing is essential to the starting unit. Essential. That they need his spacing. They need his shooting. That is going to be a key to the best version of the Sacramento Kings offense. I'm very, very much nervously looking forward to watching the first 5 minutes of Kevin Huerter in action tomorrow night. Number one, what does he look like, right? How healthy does he look? Is he moving well? Is he laboring with the shoulder at all? Does he seem tentative to make contact or play any certain way because of that shoulder? How does the shot look, right? That shot is his meal ticket. Does it look good? Does it start going in right away? Does it look off for any reason because of the shoulder? And does he go back to getting targeted immediately on defense, right? I expect, just kind of putting it together in my head, Fox on Conley and Keegan on Ant and DeMar likely on Julius Randle, Sabonis, of course, on Gobert. I think Kevin Huerter is going to start on McDaniels. And McDaniels not necessarily known as an offensive player, but certainly can score. Do the Wolves try and have McDaniels target Kevin Huerter right out of the gate? I'm very interested to see if that's the case because, look, Kevin Huerter was singled out and targeted a lot to start games last season when he was playing. So do we see teams try and go right back to that? We'll have to see. But before we proceed with more on my thoughts on Kevin Huerter returning and a bunch of stuff that we're going to dive into, let's hear a little bit from Kevin Huerter. First, here's Huerter talking about his return to action, his return to playing, being healthy, and of course his return to playing with the starting group.
I've played 5-on-5 now a couple times in practice and felt really comfortable, felt good in the 3-on-3s, and I'm sure there's some plays that I haven't done yet. I'm not sure what those are. I'll know when they happen. But again, this is kind of the next step in the progression of this fully getting all the way back. It's healthy. Sergeant feels good that it's in a really good spot, and I feel comfortable enough on it, and I'm ready to play.
A lot of attention obviously comes with you back in that starting lineup, but a lineup outside of DeMar that you're obviously familiar with. Can you just talk about maybe just that fit for you and how that might be best for you and the team?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have seen that for the last 2 years, so nothing else really kind of changes. It's been a lot of minutes of 4 of us, I guess, on the court together. DeMar's fitting into that, so for me, it's nothing new.
Have you gotten back to a point where you can fully focus on basketball and less on the shoulder, or is it still kind of a balance of the two?
It'll still be a balance. It will be, I think, all year. Just now there's a lot more time spent out here. I was doing all the non-contact stuff for a little while and having to watch the scrimmages and watch everything go live. And during that time, I was doing my own conditioning or in the weight room. And after 6-7 months, it just mental fatigue starts to kick in. So it's good to get your reps.
In addition to Kevin Huerter coming back from his significant injury, Kevin's also coming off of the worst season of his career. And I'm not the one saying that. Those are Kevin's own words. He called last season the worst of his career. So in many ways, this season, him getting back for game 1 of the season isn't just a return from injury. It's a fresh start for Kevin.
I know last year didn't go the way you wanted it. What are you looking forward to showing this year?
Just continue to show what I've shown my whole career. I think when I'm on the court and comfortable and consistent in what my role looks like on a team and consistent with who I'm playing with and comfortable with the team, I think I've always been in a good spot. And so just getting back to that. I think there's a lot of changes in a lot of ways last year, and we tried out a lot of different things and figuring out how to get better as an organization, as a team, and we're 1 year past that. And so in a lot of ways, I'm just looking to flip the page and have a new slate going into this year.
Have they communicated kind of what that role they want from you this year?
Not too much. It's similar. I'm just trying to play my game play my game, and that's kind of been kind of my MO going into this season. Whatever happens, happens, and I'm here to help the team and be a good teammate, and that's kind of all I'm focused on.
So here are my feelings with Kevin. Like, if Huerter is shooting the ball well and spacing the floor because of it, he's perfect. He's a perfect fit for that lineup and for this team in general, right? The Kings need the shooting, they need the spacing, and the fact that, like we've talked about so much over the course of this offseason, no matter who's on the floor with DeMar and De'Aaron on the perimeter, they're going to get good looks. But the fact that Kevin Huerter is as good of a shooter as he is, and the looks that he more than likely is going to get because of the guys that he's sharing the floor with, it makes me excited for Kevin on opening night, right? It makes me excited to see, okay, what kind of looks is he getting right away because he's sharing the floor with Fox and DeRozan and Sabonis for the first time. They've never played together other than, I'm sure they've run 5 togethers now in practice over the last week, 5-on-5 and scrimmages together. But in an actual game, what does it look like? I'm excited to see, because I believe not just Kevin Huerter, but a ton of guys, Keegan Murray too, they're going to get good looks because of this new core on offense that the Sacramento Kings have. But if we talk about the good, we also have to talk about the potential bad, right? If Kevin Huerter is not hitting shots, like I just said, it's his meal ticket. If he's not hitting shots, though, I wouldn't be surprised at all to watch his playing time on any given night plummet, right? Just because he's a starter doesn't mean he'll play more minutes than Keon Ellis on a nightly basis. Arguably, he shouldn't play more minutes than Malik Monk on a nightly basis, even with Malik coming off the bench. And we talk about closing lineups. I don't think that starting lineup featuring Kevin Huerter is going to be the same lineup that closes games unless Kevin's on fire or shooting the ball well. I think a closing lineup is more than likely going to have Malik or Keon instead of Kevin, depending upon if you need Keon's defense or you need Malik's overall energy and scoring and playmaking. I don't see, he can prove me wrong, and I hope he's shooting the ball well enough to prove me wrong. I would expect Kevin Huerter to be the last out of the 3 to be on the floor to close a tight game. That being said, I was also not expecting Kevin Huerter to come back and start, and here we are. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Game Time. This is the app or the site that you need to be using to get your Sacramento Kings tickets all season long. And Game Time has a feature called Game Time Picks, which makes finding tickets to see your favorite teams play even easier. It filters out all the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time going through hundreds or even thousands of tickets available for that specific event. Their all-in pricing is a feature that is so simple and yet so unnecessary, because how many times have you purchased tickets from those other sites, right? And you select your seats for the select dollar amount, and then you get to that final screen, the final checkout screen, and all of a sudden, bam, there's another 20, 30, 40 bucks of fees added on that you weren't aware of until the very, very end. Yeah, Game Time, they don't do that. They show you your all-in pricing right at the beginning. The number that you see when you first select your seats, that is the number that you are paying. Their seat views cannot be beat, and their lowest price guarantee is legitimate, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Of course, now we got to talk a little bit about Keon Ellis. There's something to be said about Keon's proven ability to play well and fit in with whatever unit and whatever group. Right? I think that is a tremendously valuable asset. He can play under any circumstance, whether you need him to start, need him to come off the bench, need him to fill in for Fox if Fox gets, God forbid, hurt or gets into foul trouble, need him to pair next to Fox to help take some of that defensive responsibility off of Fox's shoulders. Whatever scenario, I think the Kings are very confident in Keon's ability to handle it. Maybe more confident in that than they are in him being the right fit with the starting unit, hence this decision. You're going to hear later on from Mike Brown talking about, I asked him directly how valuable it is to have a guy like Keon coming off the bench, and he had great things to say about Keon. He's an incredible asset to this team. And even though he's out of the starting lineup now, make no mistake about it, he's still going to have an extremely important role with this group. And his attitude is fantastic. Take a listen to what he had to say about going back to the bench and how his role changes, but also primarily stays the same.
I think the game will still be played the same way, regardless as to who I'm out there with. I mean, most of the time, either Domas or Fox will probably be out there. So, those guys will do a lot of the initiating and the playmaking or whatever. But, I mean, I always play off for other guys anyway. So I don't think there will be too much of a shift, honestly. And I mean, I'm ready for whatever I'll have to do anyway. So I think I'll be fine.
Yeah, I know it's over. Preseason is over. But how do you feel like you played?
Me personally, I think I just tried to go out there and do what was needed of me, and kind of. I mean, obviously we have some new pieces, so trying to kind of figure out our new offense and how things are going to flow. So, kind of just didn't try to go out there and do too much. Just kind of whatever the game gave me, try to just take it. So, but I mean, now that the real games are here, so I know it'll be more game plan oriented as far as from other teams. Like they're probably going to really try to emphasize, limiting the amount of touches that our main guys get. So I'll probably have more, or they're going to try to force me to beat them in a sense, or our role player guys. So just kind of got to be ready for probably more looks and being ready to do more, I guess.
You've made a career to this point out of being flexible and staying ready and whatever came you've dealt with it. How much confidence does that give you with whatever the season might bring thrown at you going forward?
I think it gives me all the confidence just because I'm never walking into anything expecting something. So, whatever gets thrown at me, it's like, okay, this is what it is. Just got to go out and do it. So I think that mindset definitely helps me in any situation.
How would you say, or can you speak on how interchangeable this group is? Different guys playing with each other. I know you're going to get looks with all these different guards that you're playing with. So how comfortable is this entire group in just playing with different lineups?
Well, kind of like I said earlier, I think with the team that we have, so many guys can do the things that we do. Like, you don't necessarily need Fox to bring it up the court. Our two can keep trying to get Keegan to bring it up more. Malik will. DeMar can handle it as well. Domas even too. So I think we can, give teams different looks with how we approach. So I think that's a unique thing to have as well.
What's the biggest difference, just preparing for a game, coming off the bench versus starting, now that you've done both?
That is a great question. Honestly, man, I just roll out there and I don't know, kind of just figure out who I'm guarding and kind of just play the game. But I think, I don't know, if you're starting, I think it's more so you're kind of setting the tone for the team. So there's nights where the starting group starts off great for us, and then there's some nights where the bench has to come in, kind of get us back on track and whatnot. So I think that starter role is just more so trying to give our team the best first punch. So I think with the bench, I mean, and then we go out there and try to maintain that. So I think that's really the two different things when either starting or coming off the bench.
Those of you who have been listening to Locked On Kings over the last 2 seasons know how big of a fan and supporter I am of Mike Brown, how big of a believer I am in Mike Brown. That being said, and I don't necessarily think this is a negative thing, but Mike Brown's approach to this whole starting shooting guard saga this year has been strange. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean bad, but it also makes me think is Mike kind of playing the game a little bit? And what I mean by that is, look, Keon Ellis seems to fit more with Mike Brown's vision for what the Sacramento Kings need to be, right? Mike Brown talking so much last year about defense. And while the Kings did improve pretty significantly as a team defensively last year, we know the offensive drop-off was a major difference and probably the primary reason, other than Malik Monk getting hurt and Kevin Huerter getting hurt, that the Kings missed the playoffs. And clearly, very clearly, the emphasis is to get that offense back to what it was. That doesn't mean defense goes out the window, but again, if we were going off of what Mike Brown has been consistently saying over the last year, you'd think, okay, Keon Ellis was going to start because of the defensive impact that he can make with the Kings. Well, the Kevin Huerter side of things kind of fits more in with Monte McNair's vision, because you look at all the moves that Monte McNair has made over the last 2 years, and they are primarily offensively focused and offensively driven. Now, I don't know, and I'm not going to assume or speculate that there was a meeting that happened between the two, and Monte McNair convinced Mike Brown that this is the direction that the Kings needed to go in, and Mike Brown backed off of the belief that the Kings still need to be a good defensive team. I'm not going to go that far. But I also don't get the sense that either party, Mike and Monty, are fully convinced by what they've seen from both Keon and Kevin. I think when Kevin's hitting shots like he was 2 years ago, Kevin is brilliant for this team. But when Kevin's not hitting shots, there's kind of nothing else there. And Keon, while he was a great story last year and helped this team improve defensively, he was a two-way guy this time last year. And when you're trying to win a championship, not just tell a great story, when you're trying to win a championship, how legitimate and how good are your chances of actually winning a championship with a former two-way guy as your starting shooting guard? And that's not meant to be negative towards either guy. I just get the sense that unlike the starting, of course, point guard position, center position, locks, the Kings feel very confident in Keegan Murray's ability as a lock at that 4 spot. And then, of course, the addition of DeMar DeRozan, a lock at the 3. But the shooting guard position, from Malik to Keon to Kevin, is in such limbo that I'm not fully convinced that those guys are convinced by what they have at that spot and if it's the right thing that they need at that spot going forward. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Oh yeah, it's back. I could not be more excited. What is Prize Picks? Well, Prize Picks is the place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money with Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. So let's say going into Kings and Timberwolves, right? You'll see this on the Prize Picks app before the game starts. You'll see more or less numbers set for, like, let's say De'Aaron Fox, more or less than 25.5 points. Domantas Sabonis, more or less than 35.5 points, rebounds, and assists combined, right? Anthony Edwards, more or less than 7.5 assists, right? Let's say you take more on 2 of them, less on 1 of them. You get all 3 of them right, you can win some big money on Prize Picks. And Prize Picks last year, boy, I had not just a lot of fun with Prize Picks. Last year, let's just say this. Last year was a very successful year for me on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's instantly $50 on Prize Picks with code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Why don't we hear from Mike Brown? Here's Mike talking about Huerter, Ellis, and I thought this last part was interesting too, his lack of feel or familiarity with this group because of the injuries.
No minutes restriction, but obviously you want to be able to make sure that you have a feel for how the players are playing out there. He hadn't played in a while, and he could be out of rhythm a little bit. Who knows? But there are no restrictions there for him to be on the floor.
Like having an asset like Keon, though, who I know he caught your attention by how he played at the end of the blowout in Houston, but staying ready, and you can plug him in if anything happens with the person. How valuable is that from him?
Extremely valuable. He's different than what we have in terms of his skill set, and you like the fact that you can throw him into the game and he can guard multiple guys on the perimeter, different types of players, especially guys that thrive in the pick and roll situation, while also being able to knock down an open catch and shoot three. His deflection rate is off the charts, and then for a guy his size, he's a pretty good rebounder too. So there are a lot of good things that we see from a young guy in Keon, and you love his readiness, because every time we called his number and threw him in the game, he seemed to have an impact in some way, shape, or form.
And building off that too, we know you like to stagger your rotations,
yeah.
stagger your lineup. So how valuable and how well do you think prepared these guys are to play with anybody at any given time with the different looks they'll get?
We're getting there, and one of the things I reminded our guys that it's a process, it's a journey, and to try to think about the outcome every single time we step on the floor isn't realistic, or I don't want our guys to do that. And part of it is because we had a lot of guys injured, and we have some guys coming back now, and guys that are coming back are probably going to play, and so that means that there are going to be lineups that we throw out on the floor that haven't played together at all, and you talk about when you're watching the Timberwolves, they were making a little bit of a deal of, hey, this lineup only played once together, and really we haven't played with Kevin in 6 months in the lineup. We haven't played with that lineup at all because DeMar wasn't with us last year, so we're going to have some newness to us, and I just don't want our players, whether we're doing bad, to get frustrated, and if we're doing good, I don't want us to be here neither. We got to try to stay even keeled and understand that we keep embracing the process, the details, and the outcome's going to take care of itself eventually the right way, in my opinion.
You mentioned some of those guys. How's Trey looking? Do you kind of expect him to be possible? Yeah,
Trey will be cleared to play. He looks good, but again, it's similar to Kev. He hadn't played the whole preseason, so you don't really know what you're going to get, but he'll be available. This is probably the least amount of feel that I have for my group going into a regular season, and it's due to the injuries, and then the addition of DeMar too, and trying to figure out the rotations and how we're going to use everybody. But I'm excited about it. The guys, we scrimmaged yesterday, and so got a little bit better feel of it. But we'll have to kind of wait and see as time goes on, because we may do some things tomorrow that we may not do in game 5 or 6.
Going back to your lack of familiarity with this group, how much then do you rely on the guys who are not just returning from the last couple seasons, but have been here in camp, the Foxes, the Sabonis, guys like that? How much do you rely on them?
A lot. We always say, hey, when you're on the floor, communicate. If you communicate, give effort and cover for one another, you got a chance. And, most people apply that defensively, but it's no different offensively. For a guy like DeMar, he may be in a spot to do this action, and because it's new to him, it's not innate. So the other guy just talked to him, hey, pin in here, and so he's communicating to him, he's trying to cover for him, and then DeMar can get it from there. So our vets, the guys that have been here, need to step up and speak a lot, just not on defense, but even on offense as well.
Couple things to break down from that. Number one, no minutes restriction for Huerter and Lyles. That's awesome. That means they're good to go, and he can freely play with them. Not that they're going to, either one of them are going to play a boatload of minutes, we'd imagine, but at least there's no restriction on any of them, which is a good sign that they are ready to go. In some ways, with his comments, especially there at the end, it feels like Mike is setting the table for a potentially slow start with some growing pains, where he's saying, hey, I don't want guys to get frustrated if we're not playing super well out of the gate. But he also goes to the other side and says, if we're playing super well and we're doing things great right away, I don't want us to get too high like we've made it and we've all figured things out, because obviously teams are going to start to figure them out a little bit more too as they play each other, and more importantly, as the Kings put more stuff on tape than what they have as a group right now. I also and I don't know if this is illogical by me, and this is not just a feeling that's come out of the blue. I can't shake the suspicion that the Kings want to keep their full-strength offense, or what they believe is their full-strength offense, under wraps. And look, Mike has played coy with the media before. If you remember, back in the playoff series against the Warriors, he downplayed as much as possible his familiarity with the Golden State Warriors because of how many years he spent with Steve Kerr as an assistant in Golden State. He downplayed that time and time again when we know that was absolutely a factor. Is Mike downplaying Kevin Huerter or Keon Ellis' importance with this team? We saw the Sacramento Kings play so well together offensively in that first quarter of the first preseason game, and then did not look like that for the rest of preseason. Is that because the way they played was a flash in the pan, or is it because the Kings knew it worked and didn't want to put anything else on tape and didn't want to show anything else off and wanted to experiment with other things on offense and defense that they weren't so sure about? Boy, I hope it's the latter, because if it is the latter, then Kings are going to be in good shape. But again, I can't shake that suspicion that Mike and Monty and the Kings have kind of known what they wanted to do all along with Huerter starting and Huerter's offensive fit with this offensively driven roster. But I could also be reading tea leaves that aren't actually there, and Mike is genuine when he's saying, I don't know what this group looks like with DeMar DeRozan. I don't know how good this team is going to be because two very important rotational players were out all of training camp and preseason. So maybe that is genuine. But I don't know. I think there's some sneakiness going on with this Kings group. And offensively, I'm looking forward to seeing some answers because we sure as hell aren't going to really hear any at this point. All this time we spent talking about Kevin Huerter, and having Trey Lyles back is a huge deal for this team. Huge deal for this team. Trey is such a wild card for Sacramento. A wild card with the capability of, in many ways, being an ace up Mike Brown's sleeve, right? Trey has the ability to change the game with the second unit. And the thing with Trey is Trey has to be ready for a hybrid role with the same kind of consistent output. And what I mean by that is, like, he needs to be ready at any time to play either the 4 spot or a small ball 5. Because unless, maybe tomorrow night might not be the best example with someone as big as Rudy Gobert. But for some of these teams, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Alex Len gets the night off because of matchups and Trey Lyles plays that small ball 5 spot. We've seen it before and we've seen it work. So he needs to be ready at all times to play either the 4 or the 5. He'll be looked at constantly to space the floor, right? Just like so many of these guys are. For the Kings offense to work, that 5-out offense, they're constantly going to be on the perimeter, spacing the floor. Just like other guys, he's going to get open looks because the Kings stagger their lineup, so there's no way Trey Lyles is not going to play with Fox and/or DeRozan at any given time. So he's going to get looks off of them just like everybody else will. He needs to be ready to knock down those 3-point looks that he's going to get. He also has to crash the glass, which Mike Brown has talked about him as one of the best rebounders and the best offensive rebounder that the Sacramento Kings had last year. He's going to be expected to do that. And his defense needs to be tough, right? I wouldn't label Trey Lyles as a great defender, but he's tough, right? Trey, in many ways, like Malik Monk is the leader of that second unit, and he's the 6th man for sure. Trey, I feel like, is the enforcer off of the bench. He's that guy that will foul hard if he needs to. He will be that guy. Malik brings the energy. Trey brings the energy in the form of physicality. That's what I feel like Trey Lyles needs to do. And assuming he's healthy enough to be able to play with that physicality, that's what the Kings need from him off of that bench. So Trey Lyles being back, I think, is a humongous deal. Humongous deal for the Sacramento Kings. Very, very excited to see him suit up and play. because last year was not the greatest year for him. He dealt with on and off injuries all last season. Remember, he started last season out with injury. I think it was like an ankle injury or some kind of nagging leg injury or something like that. Thank God he's back. He's not dealing with that. Knock on wood, he won't deal with any kind of injuries like that over the course of the season, because when he's consistently out there on the floor, more often than not, good things are happening for the Kings. And I'm not exaggerating when I say I think Trey Lyles can be a guy that we look back at the end of this season and go, man, the difference that Trey Lyles made and the impact that Trey Lyles has with that second unit single-handedly won the Kings some games. I genuinely would not be surprised by that. I think Trey Lyles is that good and that important for this team. So we'll have to wait and see. I cannot wait for tomorrow night. The Golden One Center is going to be popping. I'll be up at the top of section 105 like I always am with the media. If you're coming through to opening night, come by, say hi, and I hope that when I meet you and get to chat with you at the game tomorrow night, that you are a subscriber of the new Locked On Kings newsletter. Because if you are, then I can really thank you to your face. Because check this out. I got told today by the network, Locked On Podcast Network, reached out to me, told me that Locked On Kings has 3 times the subscribers of the other Locked On NBA podcasts, all the other teams. Locked On Kings is number 1. I'm so freaking thankful for y'all. I'm so proud of you. And I was like, hell yeah, that's what Sacramento does. This is Kings fandom. Love our Kings. Loyal to the absolute bitter end, right? I'm so unbelievably grateful. Like time and time again, you guys blow my mind with how incredible you are and how much you support me, support this show, support the Sacramento Kings in general, right? I'm so grateful to be one of you. I'm so grateful to work with you. I'm so grateful to work for you. I do everything that I can to provide you with the best Sacramento Kings coverage you're going to get and to take you, hopefully, where nobody else has taken you in a podcast form, right? Thank you so much for your continued support of the newsletter. If you haven't signed up yet and want to be a part of it, you can. The link is in the comment section on YouTube or in the description on YouTube. Audio listeners, it should be in the description of the podcast episode that you're listening to right now. Follow that link. It's like newsletters.lockedonpodcast.com. Enter your email, sign up. It's totally free. The newsletter is sent to you, and that subscriber is another number on the scoreboard of the Sacramento Kings, which, by the way, is kicking the Lakers you know what. And that's what I'm excited about, too. Oh, yeah, I've been smack talking the Lakers. Oh, yeah. LA, they might have all those people over there. Laker Nation might be big. Yeah, they don't have the subscribers of Locked On Kings and the new Kings newsletter. So have fun with all your millions of people down there in LA. The real ones here in Sacramento, they love their Kings content. And I'm so grateful to be a part of that content for you to enjoy and to get that support and love that I know the players feel, the coaches feel, the front office feels, right? To get even a little piece of that is a dream come true for a kid from Sacramento who grew up a part of that fan base, who loves this team just as much as you do. So thank you for your support of the newsletter and, of course, your continued support here of this podcast. This will be season number 10 for me, not hosting the podcast, but season number 10, covering the Kings professionally, a decade of covering Kings basketball. What a dream come true. And it's going to be better than ever. Hopefully with the Kings also making a deep playoff run. But regardless of what the Kings do, my coverage, I commit to you, will be better than it ever has been before, because that's what you deserve. Thank you so much for your support. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.